Hey, welcome to this week's Lowdown. I'm John Waters. We're going to dive into everything aviation and defense. Today we have Russian Tu-95 Bear bombers that were intercepted near Alaska, as well as a couple of their escort buddies that were flying around. We have F-35 upgrade delays with TR-3, as well as a few other things. The J-35 coming out of China, NASA's X-59 AIM-120 upgrades, and our threat of the day is the AGM-158 JASSM. We're going to talk about a whole bunch more. Before we do that, just a couple admin notes. As always, if you like this type of content, I think you'll like the Lowdown newsletter, which pairs with this quite well. You can click the link down below, and you'll get aviation and defense-related news and content each and every week, absolutely free. Click the link down below. I won't spam you. Also, I want to give a shout-out to Authentic Media. If you like this type of content, then I think you'll like Authentic Media. Now, this is premium podcast that do deep dives into fighters, bombers, weaponry, future warfare, flight operations, and everything in between. And right now, they're giving away 6 months absolutely free. If you click the link down below and you're one of the first 50 people to sign up, then again, you get 6 months free. You can use the code 62F6D, and I have that all down in the comments. All right, the Cold War's back, baby. I guess it really never went anywhere, but yet again this week we had NORAD scrambling F-35s and F-16s out of Elmendorf to intercept 2 Russian Tu-95 Bear bombers, as well as their escorts, Su-35s. This happened as these bears and flankers were approaching the Alaskan ADIZ. That's the Air Defense Identification Zone, the bubble that goes around every nation that we say is our airspace, and you're not supposed to enter it without permission. It's about a 3 to 4 hour mission, which was augmented or assisted by the E-3 Sentry. That's the AWACS, the Airborne Command and Control. And I've talked about that a lot more than I ever thought we would on this newsletter and this podcast recently, because it all ties into the E-7, which is the follow-on to the E-3 is a 707 platform. It's got the big dome spinning around, providing that radar picture and fighter control out there. It's supposed to be replaced by the E-7, which is more modern 737 platform with a MESA radar, electronically scanned arrayed radar. Yeah, again, Nokia, not even Nokia, like rotary phone compared to the iPhone. And recently, in the past couple of weeks, the Air Force said, hey, we're nixing the E-7 buy, and we're just going to rely on space-based assets. Now, there's some back and forth going on between the Air Force and Congress and the budget, but they're saying the E-7 is not survivable in a high-end fight. Well, that might be true. There's probably something we need as a stopgap solution, because you got to be able to get to that point in order to do it. And having command and control is critical when it comes to this type stuff, as one might envision or have experienced, depending on your background. So we digress there a little bit, but the Tu-95, this is a 1950s turboprop that carries cruise missiles, nuclear weapons, has about a 2,000 mile range. And this past week, it was escorted by Su-35s, which is a modern 4th generation fighter, very maneuverable. I've seen it perform at air shows, and the fire show specifically. Thrust vectoring is eye-watering. It is a rather large fighter. I mean, it's huge. So a lot of metal flying around out there in the sky, but nonetheless, those are up there. And this past week, it doesn't appear was as dramatic as last year when Su-35 passed across the nose of an F-16 at very close range. Rather recklessly, I think most of us would agree. Interesting enough, this is or at least it appears to be, this is the first time the Tu-95 has flown out close to Alaskan ADIZ since June, when Ukrainian drones struck Russian airfields, damaging at least 6 of these Tu-95 bombers. So these little drones taking out strategic assets definitely should be an eye-opener for everyone in the world who's watching and has a military of some kind. We'll see. And if you're a newsletter subscriber, you can participate in the trivia of the day, which comes from open source. How many times did Russian military aircraft get detected inside or approaching the ADIZ in 2024? I shouldn't say inside, because they're going to get escorted prior to that, but that's in the quiz, and that comes from open source. So yeah, play around with trivia if that's your thing. If not, I guess move on. All right, the F-35 appears to be stuck in a holding pattern yet again. Now, in the past couple of weeks, the Air Force announced it was slashing its fiscal year 26 buy from 44 aircraft to 24 aircraft, frustrated by Lockheed Martin's delays with the Block 4 upgrades. Air Force wants fully combat-capable jets, not ones that need retrofitting, or, hey, we'll just take a knee for a minute, and these are about good, and we'll get the upgrades to you. They want the real thing. They want it now, and they want it when it is supposed to be delivered. So Block 4 boosts the capability of the F-35. It puts it in full beast mode, upgrades the radar, enhances weapon capabilities, sensor integration, sensor fusion, and everything in between, and stuff we can't talk about in this platform. But nonetheless, like Block 4, that's what we want. TR3, Technology Refresh 3, was the foundation, one of the layers of the foundation prior to Block 4 that needs to happen in order for the F-35 to be ready for Block 4. This is enhancing sensor processing, computer processing, power generation inside the jet, etc. Supply chain woes, computer coding, all these and others played factors in delaying TR-3, where in fact, last year the Air Force said, hey, we're not accepting any more TR-3 jets. Lockheed's parking lot of F-35s just stacked up, totaling about $1.6 billion in losses as they had to work through this solution for TR-3. The Air Force eventually said, hey, we'll start accepting these TR-3 jets with a Band-Aid, saying that they're good enough for training, meaning they probably come with all the bells and whistles you need to replicate the threats and train for it, but they're not combat coded. We're not taking these things to war. And over the past year or so, that Lockheed and the Air Force has been working to get these Band-Aided TR-3 jets up to full-up rounds. Lockheed has claimed it's stable, but they're still battling the Pentagon's Joint Program Office, which hasn't fully greenlit the production there. So this TR-3 has ultimately delayed Block 4, which delays everything when it comes to the F-35 program. Now, this program is a $428 billion program, depending, I guess, on what number you look at. Pretty expensive. Lots of cost overruns, lots of delays. It is a very capable jet, but again, it doesn't come without problems. Now, Lockheed's CEO this past week is pitching the idea of enhancing the F-35, giving it a Ferrari-like upgrade, which will allow it to be a stopgap between fifth generation and the F-47, that next generation air dominance fighter the Air Force announced in the spring. What they said, the F-35 has already proven itself with a stellar combat record, which it has done some pretty cool stuff in combat thus far. So the F-35 is the Air Force's future, at least until the F-47 rolls around. It's probably going to be some kind of blended hybrid of what capabilities, and if we even know that at this point, because as we've seen, drone warfare has drastically changed the landscape of what the battlefield looks like. So who knows what it'll look like in 10 or 15 years. Right now, Lockheed's still battling TR-3, getting ready for Block 4, and trying to pitch what the F-35 might become and evolve to. It wasn't necessarily part of the game plan originally. All right, it does seem like spying has also become a routine thing that we mentioned in the newsletter. San Jose engineer, I don't know if I can pronounce this guy's name, but I'm not even going to try it, pleaded guilty this past week to stealing over 3,600 files on missile detection technology. These included infrared sensors for countering hypersonics and stealth. These are valued at hundreds of millions of dollars. Many were tied to official U.S. government Department of Defense work. They were export control. They were funded by DARPA. His ties to China's 10,000 Talents programs raised alarms about tech transfer to Beijing. He faces 10 years in prison. China has a history of targeting the United States when it comes to defense tech, especially since the 1990s. Not just defense tech, but everything in the commercial sector and, again, education, commercial, defense. And this, if you weren't paying attention to it, hopefully this is one of those things where it starts opening your eyes because it has become very prevalent. So a lot of people are getting caught over the last few years, especially stealing these trade secrets. And as I was doing the research for this, I forgot about the OPM, the Office of Personnel Management, back in 2015 that had 21 million records. So basically everyone in the government had their records hacked and stolen by the Chinese. So if that doesn't make you feel great, I don't know what does. The Chinese are definitely aggressive with this espionage. Not saying we don't do it too, because there's going to be someone who loses their mind in the comments, but the Chinese are very aggressive when it comes to this. And again, people keep getting caught. And I didn't even plan this, but this is the next one in the newsletter. I don't know how this one got by, but Microsoft has been using Chinese engineers supporting the United States Department of Defense's Azure cloud services. So this Azure handles everything that ties to cloud services when it comes to the Pentagon data. Now, I don't know how they're going to separate the two. I imagine it doesn't happen overnight without DoD losing capability, which I'm sure that's fine just for the hard line. But if you use Microsoft, obviously they're still going to be using engineers in China. So do with that what you will. This is kind of cool. NASA's X-59, it conducted some tests this past week. This is a supersonic jet that Lockheed Martin developed at Plant 42 out in California. Conducted some low-speed taxi tests. Its 55-foot nose and top-mounted engines cut the sonic booms to just a soft thump. Now, I mean, if you haven't heard a sonic boom, it is pretty awesome. I guess it would be pretty annoying if you're just hearing it all the time. But the goal here is to get back to commercial supersonic flight. Plan is for the first flight in 2026. The goal, Mach 1.4. Then we can overcome the fact that sonic boom, supersonic flight was banned over the majority of the United States, except for some military areas in 1973. We can bring back that high-speed jet travel for for you and me again. It'd be great. So instead of taking 6.5 or 8 hours to get to Europe, back to the United States, we can cut this down to like 3 hours. Probably a pretty expensive ticket, I would imagine, but it would be pretty cool. Now, the AMRAAM, the AIM-120, the Advanced Medium Range Air-to-Air Missile, is getting another overhaul. The AIM-120 has really, I would say, been the backbone of air-to-air radar-guided missiles for definitely for the United States and many of our NATO and Western allies since the 1990s. There have been a whole slew of variants and blocks that have come out. AIM-120 Echo that's on its way. These upgrades would include data link, advanced motor technology, allowing for larger or longer kinematic ranges. But think of data link with allowing F-35s or AWACS being able to guide this missile beyond the fighter's capability or radar range. This basically is a cost-effective, again, bridge between the AIM-260, which is the future of high-end threat missile technology. The AMRAAM has been getting a lot of use over the past year or so, shooting down drones, etc. It's a pretty expensive missile to be knocking down 3D printed drones, but again, rapidly fielding other capabilities and technologies. When it comes to a near-peer high-end fight, the AMRAAM is going to be, again, very integral to any type of air combat. So you're going to need a lot of them. And China has the PL-15, and from what we're hearing about the old PL-15, pretty robust missile. So we need some robust missiles ourselves. All right, back over to China. People's Liberation Army Navy has inducted J-35s into their 5th generation aircraft fleet. This is smaller than the J-20, but it is a big plane in of itself, 2 engines, and watch this. I'll say it kind of looks like the F-35. Go check out the comments because you're going to see like 5 people lose their minds over the fact that this doesn't look like an F-35. It looks like an F-35 with 2 engines. There, I said it and I stand by it. China unveiled a whole slew of new and modern aircraft this past New Year's, the J-35 being one of them. Now, ultimately, I think this will be geared for the Navy as well as potential export as they look to grow into that market as well. But it expands their 5th generation fleet with AESA radar, stealth technology, enhanced kinematics when it comes to weapons, etc. So the J-35 now making its way into the Navy. Picture in the newsletter, you can see just it being escorted with a little tiny, little augmentation pod on the bottom of that jet. So if you want to see what that looks like, check out the Lowdown newsletter. All right, a lot of F-35, J-35 in this one. Belgium is stepping up their defense spending. In 2025, their budget hits 2% of its GDP, $14.9 billion, and this is up from just 1.2%. So 0.8% bump, which 0.8 doesn't seem like a whole lot, I guess, until you're dealing with billions. But they're ordering 11 F-35 as well as advanced missile defense and third-party anti-submarine frigate. All right, a quick snapshot of some other news articles. Leumer, I am probably butchering his name, but he was an Air Force fighter pilot, F-15 pilot, then a Space Command officer, and he was relieved of command for writing a conservative book about Marxism in the DoD. He's been sworn as the 29th Undersecretary of the Air Force. Personally, excited to see that. I think the guy's pretty sharp, so we'll see how that pans out. The 510th Extraordinary Fighter Squadron, the Buzzards, are right back in Aviano this past week. That's when the article came out. They've hopefully been home for a little bit, but broke a lot of records. Over 8,000 hours flying in combat operations in the Middle East, over 1,400 sorties, and it looks like they racked up several medals for their pilots, single event air medals, as well as 2 distinguished flying crosses there. Why not talk about China again? BlackRock, the world's largest asset manager, has forbidden its employees when traveling to China to bring or access any BlackRock proprietary information, networks, etc. It has advised them to get burner phones, basically, and leave any of their technology devices back out of China if they have to go visit. We've seen a couple people get detained this past few weeks, too. I did not put that in the newsletter. I need to put that in there. Turkey is looking like they're closing in the deal with Eurofighter for 40 jets. Now, again, Turkey got kicked out of the F-35 program because they were doing things they shouldn't have been doing. They're developing their own indigenous 5th generation fighter, the Khan. They have F-16s, which they're modernizing. They still have the F-4 flying around, which they're modernizing that as well. But they want to buy more fighters there. Italy has also spent some money this past week buying 2 E-37B Compass Call electronic attack aircraft. Now, the threat of the day is AGM-158. Check out the Lowdown newsletter if you want all the details, because we go into great detail about the AGM-158, the JASSM, the different capabilities, and a little bit of its history. Again, if you're curious, check it out. That being said, thanks for listening to the Lowdown newsletter, and I will see you next week.